Welcome to Craft School. We're going to do another project using this gorgeous frosted paper from paperpapers.com. And you know, peonies are probably my favorite flower. There are so many varieties. You could probably make a different peony every week and it would take you maybe a year to make all of them. But today I'm going to show you another version of using this frosted paper. This is the third version because I keep trying to perfect it. And I wanted to show you guys a new technique that I've been kind of playing with. And even though this looks really complicated and gorgeous, I mean, look how beautiful this bouquet. And this is only 4 flowers. It's actually really simple and it is a lot of fun. So let's get started. For these peonies, I'm using this frosted paper, and this is a text weight paper, so it's not a heavy cardstock, and I don't think a cardstock would work. You just would not get the soft folds. And you know, again, with peonies, you can use whatever color you want. I'm doing more of a fall palette, so I really wanted these rich purples, and I picked azalea, violet, punch, and then for my greens, I wanted a mix of botanic, fairway, and then the centers of my peonies, I'm using this gold. I also have a really nice thick 18 gauge wire, and this is a paper covered wire, which is my new favorite. And then I have a 20 gauge wire that is a little bit thinner for my leaves, and then some floral tape. I've printed out my pattern. For my tools, I have my wire cutters and needle nose pliers. I have a hot glue gun that's low temperature. And then here are my experimental tools. And you might be able to find something that works better, but I'll share with you what I use. And I want you guys to comment in the comments below. If you do find something that works really well, share it with us because we want to know. All right, I have this foam block, and this is something that we use for our felting. You can tell there's little bits of felt all over it. You might also be able to use some sort of a cushion that you use for packing, shipping, anything that has a soft cush to it. And then I have a chopstick here. You can use a wooden dowel if you want to. Then I found this little wooden doll, and all I'm using it for is the roundness of the head. And you might be able to find something else in your toolbox that works just as well, but I like about this shape, and it's nice to have the handle. Again, if you guys have something in your toolbox or that you have found that works better, let us know. So I've cut out all of the petals for one bud and for one bloom. And I found that I can use 3 pieces of this colored paper to cut out 5 of each of the 4 petals and then 3 that I need for the bud. For the green, I like to mix the green up a bit, but if you just want to use one color of green, it just takes 1 sheet of paper. Since I'm doing multiple flowers, I'll cut 1 sheet of the one color and then another sheet of the other color and mix them up. And then I just need a little bit of this gold. And the thing that I love about the cutting machine is this is actually one cut, and then I pull them apart and I have both pieces that I need. That's pretty nifty. Since I've used my cutting machine to cut all these petals out, I haven't used my scissors yet, but right now is when I need them because you know how I like to use the edge of my scissors to curl, and the centers of these flowers, all I do is just as if it were a Christmas ribbon, just gently give this a little bit of a curl. And I want to do this with both strips. And that's actually all of the curling that I'm going to do today. And I'm going to take my heavier wire, this is my 18 gauge wire, and use my needle nose pliers to just give it a nice little bend on the end, just because I want more to grab onto when I place the glue. I'll go ahead and cover that end with glue on both sides, just so it's nice and sturdy. Then with my curl going downward, I'll place that on top, and I'm going to roll, and I'm making for sure that my curl goes inward. So you want to create somewhat of a dome. I'll just add a little bit of glue at a time so it doesn't cool off before I get to it. And you can see I'm not making it super tight. It is getting to be a little bit bulky there, and that's okay because we can use that as a base to start laying our petals underneath. So once I have the first one rolled on, I'll let that cool for just a minute. And then I'll add my second one. Again, we'll want to do the same thing so that the curl goes towards the inside. I'll set that aside. I'm going to reshape this a little bit, but we can get going on our petals while that's getting ready. So now I'm going to use this little foam block. And I'm going to start with the smallest petals And I'm telling you, this is where it gets really fun. I'm left-handed, so I'm going to use this hand. And all I'm going to do is take the little head of this doll and press it down and sort of roll it around. And look how the petal sort of rotates when I do this. And it makes this beautiful cup shape, this dome shape. And the beauty about, peonies is their petals are so ruffly that this wrinkled kind of crushed look works for this flower. So I wish there were more flowers I could do this with. I'm gonna look for some. Another thing that I like to do, especially on these bigger petals, is I'll use my chopstick and I'll just roll it. You can see the direction I'm rolling it along the petal. So it's vertical on the petal. I'll just kind of tightly roll that, and what that will do is it will take all these little nooks and crannies and actually give them a little curl, and that adds that texture to the tips of the flowers. So once I have that done, I'll go ahead and do the same thing, where I'll just sort of spin that around and press it into this foam and make this beautiful cup shape. I'm going to go ahead and use both of the techniques for all of the rest of the petals. Another tip that I might do is so that I don't have all of the petals going the same way. You can see how they have this little cut. I might take my stack of petals and flip them back and forth so that half of them go one direction, half go the other direction, and this will add a little bit more variety. The larger your petals get, you might even want to give it some kind of the spin in a couple different places. So I'm spinning it right here in the middle, in the center, and then I might go up to one of these little petals, because there's two parts to this petal, and give it a bit of a spin there. One of the things that I really love about using this frosted paper is that when it curves and it has the little bends in it, it changes color. So it adds so much dimension and almost this color variation into the flowers, and I think that makes it look a lot more realistic. I'm keeping all of my petals in stacks of the sizes because we want to keep them in order when we glue them on. The last piece that we're going to need for this flower is the back, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm just going to put that right onto the foam and then just give it some curl. And as you can see, there's already a pre-cut hole there, so it'll be ready to assemble. Okay, this is ready to go. I'm going to reshape it a little bit so you can see as it's being crushed together towards the center, some of these stick out. So all I will do is use my fingers and sort of push it down in the center and then spread it out a little bit, because we want to, there's so many little teeny tiny pieces of paper in there. We want to get as much of that as possible to fluff up, to give us a nice full center. I love the detail that we can get from our personal cutting machines, but you can do pretty good if you're just cutting them on your own too. My prototype I actually just cut by hand, and it also looks really pretty. I bet you can't tell which one it is in there. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I'll start with the smallest petal, and as these curl up, you can see what a great little crossover. We have that slit in the middle, and then it crosses over. I don't need to pre-glue that, but what I will do is just add a bead of glue onto both flaps. Then when I place it onto my flower, I'm going to place it underneath here. I'll just make for sure that the X of the crossover, that the wire is placed right between. And there's 5 petals of each size. So as I put them on, I'm just going to, rotate them so that it'll pretty much cover the whole, all the way around with just the 5 petals. So we want to do a bit of overlap. Some may be overlapped a bit more than others, and I think that looks very natural. We don't want it too perfect. It needs to have some variety. And I like to kind of place it on and then turn it over. You can adjust it. You have, probably maybe 7 seconds before the glue gets cool and you can't move it anymore. That gives you a bit of working time. I think as the petals get larger, one of the things I was enjoying seeing is to let them fall away a little bit more from the row before them, so it starts to open up, and it's as if the flower's in full bloom right before the petals start falling off. So as I'm putting this behind, what I'm doing is I'm pressing up onto this base that I created when I wrapped those 2 sets of yellow centers. I created almost this flat platform, and that's where I'm pressing when I put my glue onto the back. So since these are the last set of petals, I really want to kind of watch where I'm putting it, and I'll turn it and face it towards me as I position them. Maybe hold them a little bit longer because they weigh more and you don't want it just to fall off. You can see how that petal is starting to fall away, and I actually really like that, so I want it to stay that way. It almost curves back away from the flower itself as if it's about ready to fall off, but it won't. You can kind of bend these back if you want to, or if you want them a little tighter, you can press them up. I'll just give that a few seconds to cool. And then this is already prepared. There's a little hole. I'm going to slide that right onto my wire. Bring this up quite a ways and then add a nice amount of glue. And I'm just adding the glue into the center, not up on the sides. And then when I press that down, it kind of moves around the petals really nicely and covers up all of your work. For our buds, I like to start with a nice round shape. So I've taken some of my scraps here and I've rolled it into a ball to create this. It's about 1.5 inches. Another option that I also do if I'm in a hurry is I have these little 1.5 inch foam balls, and that will work too. But if you want to save scraps, this is perfect. If you want to go fast, this is also really good. Then I have 3 round circles. Same thing, we're just going to, this is actually the perfect shape to do this because look how easy that is, and it becomes this beautiful little cup. So 3 of those. And if you're using your crumpled paper, you'll want to, I'm going to use my lighter wire here. So this is the 20 gauge wire. See if I can grab it. And I definitely want to bend that down to give it more surface to glue onto, and I'll add a lot of glue. So I'm going to show you both techniques. If you are using this ball, you want to make sure and get enough glue in here so that it sticks, and make sure that it's solid because you do not want this falling off. And then for the foam ball, you'll do the same thing, add the glue and then just slide it in, and that should cool really nicely. Let's do this method though, because I like to save all my paper scraps and use them for something. So I'm going to add plenty of glue here. And I'll slide it into one of these little nooks and crannies and then just pinch it closed and let that cool. And I will take one of my little circle cups and add some glue all the way around the edge. Now I'll determine what my top is, kind of run that line of wire through. It looks like my top's about right there. And then place that on the edge so that this hits right at the top. You want the edge of the circle to hit at the top. My second one, looks like I need more glue. I'm going to show you guys a trick here. So you know how when you put glue sticks in and they fall out because they're not quite into that grabber space? So one of my tricks is to just put the hot point onto the back of the glue stick and then place it in, and it will stick them to each other. Pretty nifty, huh? All right, now we're ready to go. And then I'm going to wrap that around again. We're going to try and hit that cross point right at the center. And then the third. So what you're going to see here is that the top of this bud has this beautiful little folded flower, finish right there. Then I'm going to grab this back again. I have my lighter color paper. You can use whichever green you want to, but I like the darker on this one and the lighter on this one because it's more of a bud color. Go ahead and press that and make this into a nice cup. Slide the wire through the hole. And then add some glue. And I'm going to actually add the glue all the way up each one of these pieces. And then place that around and very gently cup it around your bud. And look how simple that was. So now let's add some leaves. I have some different shape leaves here. And these I just cut out. I didn't do any score lines because one of the things that I've discovered is I love doing score lines on leaves in my cutting machine, but actually what looks better is to use my scissors. I usually like to open them up. It's up to you guys what your comfort level is, and use my hand here again. If you want to use a pad, that's fine. And then just press that right into your hand. And you can kind of, I mean, I sort of see it as painting lines on my leaves with my scissor blade, because it gives it not only a line, but it kind of folds it up and gives it a texture because of the softness of my hand. And you can get creative here. Like I'll do a center spine for a leaf, and then I might do some little crosses to add just a little bit more of curve and texture. Another option is just to take a scoring tool and place it onto your mat board and use your ruler and score it that way as well. I think there's something really freeform about this method. So again, there's so many options. I actually tried this method pressing it into the pad, and I found that it actually wrinkled the paper a little bit more than I wanted it to. I wanted the leaves to be a little bit more crisp than the flowers themselves. Once you have this done, you can also go ahead and give, whoops, okay, I didn't mean to rip that. But that's okay, because we're gonna save this. I'm gonna glue it back together, and I'm gonna add this to the back of my flower, and you won't even see the rip. All right, so back to what I was saying. You can use the edge of your scissors and just give it a little teeny bit of a curl on the tips. Even with a rip, that's a beautiful leaf. Okay, I like to see, when I'm doing a bouquet of flowers, I like to see my leaves, if I'm adding them to the stems of my flowers, I like them up high, because that way they're at the surface of the bouquet. If you put them lower on your stems, that's also beautiful, but make sure that's for a flower that might stand alone, or that the stems or the leaves themselves will actually show. Otherwise they get hidden if you're going to make that into a bouquet, and that's kind of a waste of a leaf. So once you have that glued on, you can take your floral tape. I'm just going to cut a little piece here because I don't really need much, and just cover that up just to finish it. Now I'm not going to tape my whole stem in this case, because with this particular wire that has the coating, the paper coating already on it, there's really no need, especially if I'm putting this into a bouquet where you can't see the stems once I'm done. But this will just finish it off, and you don't see any little, ragged edges. I could add another leaf there if I wanted to, but I'm going to show you another way to use leaves as well once I put the leaf onto the bud. Again, I'm going to put it pretty close up to the top, and the paper covered wire sticks really nicely to the paper. Finish it off with a little bit of tape. So I have extra leaves, and when I'm, making a bouquet, it's almost like you can't have enough greenery. So I always use all of them. I'm using my lighter wire again. And two options. I'll tell you two, but I'll give you one. Go ahead and place that right onto the wire, and you can go ahead and tape that off. There's one option. Or you can double up the leaves onto one wire. We'll tape that off. This is a really great way to add bulk to your bouquets, and give some space between your flower heads, because you don't want them all to be in one big mush ball. You want to have some space that you can actually see the definition of the flower. So I'm taping that off to finish it, and then just folding back the leaves and giving them a little bit of curl. And this is a perfect little piece to add right into your bouquet as you build it out. Isn't that beautiful? This is one thing I absolutely love about these peonies. I have 5 blooms and 5 buds, and look at the gorgeous bouquet it made. And it was a lot of fun. If you enjoyed this class, make sure and click the like button and subscribe to our channel by clicking the button below. Be sure and share your projects with us, whether it be these peonies or any other, by using #MadeWithLeah on your social media. And if you have some ideas of some projects you would like us to film, make sure and use the comments below because we read every one.